Aircraft has a navigator in the form of a tree, which allows not only to navigate through the structure, not only to develop selected nodes of the structure, but also more complicated operations that all allow us to use the test repository, issuing new tests based on an existing repositories, copy, paste, move in the structure of our test cases, more complicated operations that can be performed in multiple stages may rely on the use of several test repositories, so that the results of copying several test repositories are finally combined into one big test. Possibility to divide tests into smaller parts. Lots of possibilities. Let's start from the very beginning. This is a sample test plan that was performed somewhere for a previous presentation. We had a few test cases there, a few requirements associated with the test cases. As you can see, we even made some test cases, reported a bug. Let's say we want to expand this structure a bit. You can see here that only the first test suite contains test cases. In the second and third test suite there are no test cases at all. If we would like to move any test case between test suites, we do it with a simple drag-and-drop mechanism. I take the fixed test case, drop it on the second test suite, roll out the test suite, and see my test case is located in that particular test suite. When I look inside the test suite, I can see that it has one specific test suite. Let's go back to the first test suite. It had 6. Right now it has 5 test cases because we moved one of them elsewhere. Let's assume that I would like to treat these 3 test cases as a template for creating test cases in the second test suite and the third test suite. If I right-click and choose Copy from the context menu, I can paste this particular test case into any test suite at any given time. He just showed up at this point. Let's see how they differ. The difference is quite significant. Here we have a test case that has already been executed. It had 4 steps. 4 steps have been completed. The case was closed with the result passed. However, what I pasted after copying to the second test suite looks like this. So we have a test case that still has the draft status. It is still being prepared. We can see that all the steps that were performed earlier in this source case, from which we were drawing the data, are set as not executed here. Summarizing all the operations that we performed at the test case execution stage, when copying and pasting, they are deleted, so that the test case returns to its ready-to-run form. Of course, I can rebuild this test case in any way I want. I can add another step, change the sequence of steps. For example, I will add a step, change the order, save these changes, add a description, for example.
Dodam sobie na przykład jakiś description. tej chwili to jest zupełnie...
This is a completely different test case at the moment. It was created under a different ID. As you can see, its prototype has ID 12 in the same project. Here we have ID 127. It is a completely new test case, regardless of the one it was copied from. Similarly, let's copy one more to this test suite and copy another one, also to this test suite.
Też powiedzmy, że do tej. Sprawdźmy, co się...
Let's check what happened. We have two test cases here,
Tu dwa przypadki
two test cases here.
testowe,
Our test suite has now been completed with more test cases. Of course, we can manually add further test cases at any time.
przypadki oczywiście w każdej chwili możemy sobie dołączać tutaj ręcznie kolejne przypadki testowe. Wróćmy jeszcze na chwilę do...
Let's go back to the drag-and-drop method for a moment. It allows us to rearrange our structure, that is transferring test cases within a specific test plan from one test suite to another. It also allows you to transfer test cases between different test plans in the same project.
Różnymi test planami w tym samym projekcie. Przykładowo, jeśli...
For example, if I would like to move case 2 to this particular test suite, I can see it disappearing at this point. He showed up here. Yes, I could transfer which of these cases by building some larger structure. If we copy a specific test case, we can delete it at any time. Once accepted, warnings appear that the change is permanent and irreversible.
permanentna i nieodwracalna. Parę słów na temat...
A few more words about the order operations on the structure. The most powerful thing is to do bulk on the entire structure. For example, if I decide that this particular test plan would be a repository for my next tests,
Jeśli uznałbym, że ten konkretny test plan miałby być repozytorium dla moich kolejnych testów, mógłbym...
I could create another structure based on the whole structure from here down, choosing which elements I would like in the new one. Target structure. During the whole operation, getting rid of the part related to the execution of test cases. So at the test plan level, we have 4 test cases completed, 1 bug reported. If, on the basis of this particular structure, I would make another structure. Using the cloning mechanism, the information about the execution of test cases and information about the attached bugs disappear. Additional information here. The structure can be created, cloned as a part of an existing project, but it can also be cloned to any existing project in Jira. That allows us to have a QA-craft issue type. Example. Let's say that I would like to move this whole structure down. That is, to add these 100 test cases as a repository. Based on this structure, make another structure, but ultimately place it in a new QA-craft presentation project. Let's go back to our source. Choose the possibility of cloning the structure. Let's choose the QA-craft presentation project. Here we can also decide whether the requirements that are associated with the structure should be automatically attached to the new structure. If I do not check it, then no requirement will be associated with new test cases. Standard preview that allows you to select those test cases that I am interested in.
przykładowo
If I don't want to choose the last two test suite, this one in whole, this one, we limit ourselves to 4 test cases, this one in whole,
ten weźmy w całości, ten też.
this one too.
Tutaj dajmy jakieś 3
Here we give 3 sample test cases. Let me remind you that the whole structure was 100 test cases. Here we will take the whole thing. Here let's take the next 5. Let's try to clone it.
i spróbujmy to sklonować. Chwila to potrwa.
It will take a while.
Zaznaczyłem około 20.
I think I have checked around 20 test cases. We'll see what happens in a moment.
Klonowanie zostało
The
zakończone.
cloning has been completed. Let's check if our structure has been properly cloned to the target location.
Do docelowej lokalizacji, czyli
The project we have indicated.
przy mechanizmie
With the cloning mechanism, this project was QA-Craft presentation. We have our QA-Craft test 1 structure.
Craft testy 1. Oczywiście z możliwością
Of course, we can rename this structure. It always has the same name as the source object when cloning. Let's expand the entire structure with expand all.
pomocy expand all całą strukturę. Sprawdźmy
Let's see what it looks like. 47 test cases. This is how many I marked when cloning.
klonowaniu. Jak widać,
Of course, none of the test cases are made. This framework is ready to start new tests.
rozpoczęcia nowych testów. I tak
In this way, it becomes a completely independent structure from the repository from which it comes.
repozytorium, z którego się wywodzi. Tych przypadków
These test cases, apart from the exact same content at the time of cloning, have nothing else in common.
nie łączy. One żyją własnym życiem.
They live their own lives separately.
Gdybym teraz na podstawie
If I would now perform full tests on the basis of this structure and additionally modify this structure and remove some unnecessary test cases, added new test cases,
testowe,
and based on this particular structure use it as a repository and clone it as other tests, I can do it without any problem.
jako inne testy mogę to zrobić bez problemu.
There is no rigid division in QA-Craft of what a repository is and what separate combat test cases are.
Oraz na to, czym są oddzielne bojowe przypadki testowe.
Here it is mixed up and we can make a clone of any repository at any time.
Klon na dowolnym repozytorium.
What more can we do with such a structure? If you do not want certain parts of this structure in this plan test and would like to move it to another test plan or detach it from the structure at all,
Chcielibyśmy może, nie wiem, przenieść to gdzieś do innego test planu, czy w ogóle wypiąć stąd każdej
at any time we can use the connectors that will allow us to detach a given fragment or the structure from the parent node. At this point we are at the test suite level.
suite.
If we select the detach from structure option, at this point it will cut off the tree at this point and switch it off outside the structure.
Tej części, wyciągnięcie jej poza strukturę.
Let's try information. Do I want? Yes, I want. This piece of structure is no longer in my test plan.
W moim test planie
Let's see how many test cases we have at this point. 42, which means that with the previous number 47, 5 were detached from the structure. Let's unplug one more test suite.
całość tej test suite jest
It's detached. Let's refresh the tree.
drzewko.
After refreshing, the tree has 26 test cases. Let's attach one more specific test case.
Test case.
Okay, we should have 25 test cases at last. It's correct.
Zgadza się.
What then happened to those fragments of the structure that we have detached? Can we somehow identify them?
Chować,
Answering the question, we will not see them in this tree because they do not belong to the complete structure from the project, test plan, test suite, and so on.
wywodzącej się od projektu, test planu, test suity i tak dalej. Ta struktura gdzieś powinna...
At some point, this structure has been broken and the parent nodes are missing. QAcraft has a mechanism that allows you to locate the detached fragments of structures.
Odpiętych fragmentów struktur czy zadań ze struktury.
There is assign orphans functionality. At this point, if we click on the search for fragments or detached structures, by default we end up in the context of the project in which we are. Here we can see that in this particular project, QAcraft presentation, we have 2 test suites and 1 test cases detached. Let's try to expand this structure. Every way QAcraft uses a tree structure, so it goes through all possible QAcraft functionalities. Let's try to expand. It is also used here. When I develop a specific test suite, I can see that I have detached not only the test suite, but also several test cases. If I would like to keep this state, I can leave them, all 3 elements of the structure unconnected. If I did it by mistake or unplugged it with the thought of connecting to another existing test plan, I can indicate the parent for the current fragment of a given structure at any time. For example, let's take a sample test plan.
Jakiś nasz przykładowy plan.
Okay, let's say we connect it to a test plan like this. I will try to find him now. If I remember correctly, it was the QAcraft Agile presentation project.
QAcraft Agile presentation. Sprawdzimy.
We will check, and there is my test suite with all test cases with which they were connected to this specific place. I could handle any test suite this way, but the pieces we see here have been detached on purpose. The test manager in a given organization may link it to another structure.
Zrobi tu kiedyś porządki, usunie sobie taką strukturę, czy podepnie je tam, gdzie uzna, że powinny być podpięte.
Supplementing general metrics at the test plan level. Each numerical value presented in the general test matrix that is not zero is a link leading to those issues that are aggregated under a specific number.
Do tych issues, które się kryją, zagregowane są pod konkretną liczbą.
Basically, this whole rule applies to all QAcraft. Everywhere, in every table, every non-zero value is a reference to quickly get to those issues behind the number.
Przedostać się w szybki sposób do tych issue, które kryją się za liczbą. Przykładowo.
For example, if I would like to display these 14 test cases which have not been made from our test suite,
Pierwszej test suite tutaj w naszym test planie.
after clicking, I go straight to the carry that generates exactly this list of issues, which are 14.
Które generuje mi dokładnie tę listę moich issuesów. Jest ich 14.
14 not executed test cases, which I can handle in any other way. I can go through them, I can do them, I can do anything with them. I can use this carry result as a filter. Display them in the form of a table on the dashboard in Jira or in Confluence. There are many possibilities. Standard JQLE is used here. tuned for QA craft.
na potrzeby QA crafta, ponieważ nie wszystkie
As
dane
not
da
all
się
data can be
wyciągnąć
drawn
przez,
directly, some aggregation
przez
functions
automatyczne
have been added here, allowing you to get
funkcje
to
agregujące.
those test cases that are linked to a specific test plan.
Na przykład na dostanie się do tych test case'ów, które są skojarzone z konkretnym test planem. I analogicznie.
Similarly, any value that is not zero will lead us to those test cases or issue types that are hidden under the given value.
Test case'ów czy do tych issue type'ów, które kryją się pod konkretną wartością.
Dashboard.
Testów. To, co,
What was presented in the matrix was thematically divided into charts and tables concerning test cases, concerning bugs, concerning the coverage of requirements with tests, but always limited to the project and test plan in which we are.
do tego test planu, w którym się obecnie znajdujemy.
Here we have an example of a project that has over a dozen different test plans. If we would like to display aggregated data combined with several test plans, if we click the parent node in our tree,
na tym etapie na tym poziomie tego nie zrobimy, ale jeśli klikniemy sobie projekt, czyli nadrzędny nod na naszym drzewku, pojawia się informacja
the information about which test plans we can choose for our statement appears.
do naszego zestawienia.
For example, let's click this and the next. After generating the reports, we get this tabular content and the graphs we saw scattered around the test case coverage and the bugs coverage tabs.
Te wykresy, które widzieliśmy rozbite po zakładkach test case coverage i bugs coverage. Oczywiście
Of course, just like there, it's also interactive here. At any time, we can change the number of projects, modify the dashboard to include more or less data.
Modyfikować ten dashboard tak, aby uwzględniał większą bądź mniejszą liczbę danych. Dane są prezentowane.
The data is presented basically immediately.
Model danych.
The data model is adapted to enterprise scale solutions, so for these dashboards, data of 10,000 to 20,000 test cases are not a problem. Everything is generated within 2 seconds.
10-20 tysięcy test case'ów nie robią wrażenia. Wszystko jest generowane w ciągu max 2 sekund.